So it says I have a new job opportunity, but the job may not be available in my city, so I may have to move. My wife and I don't know if we should sell our house or try and rent it out. What should we consider? And this is from John M.
Okay, so Brian, I think it'd be interesting if we walked through, because a lot of people face it. You lived this. You actually had to face this decision of, do we sell a house or do we potentially rent a house? How do we know which way to go? How do we know which one to do? I think we're going to talk about the mathematics behind it. Like, how do you know mathematically which one might be optimal? But I do think there is a behavioral thing that you need to think about. No matter which way the math would have you lean, no matter which way the math would suggest you ought to go, one of the things you ought to just think through is, do I behaviorally want and I'm going to use the word hassle, it doesn't have to be that way, but do I want to be a landlord? Some people fall in love with this idea of, okay, I'm going to keep my house, I'm going to rent it, and I'm going to have rent coming in, and that rent's going to cover the mortgage, and then I'm going to watch the house appreciate, and it's going to be amazing, and everything's going to work out. But do you really want to be the person who's having to source your tenants? Do you want to have to pay a management company? Do you have to want to have someone else live in your house and potentially damage things that you are going to be responsible to repair? So you have to work through the behavioral piece first of, no matter what the math says, is this something that I'd be willing to do? And once you arrive at the conclusion that, okay, maybe I'd be willing, then I think there's some math you can work through when you make this determination.
Well, my experience here is, first of all, doing rental property out of state or out of town where you have to drive 30 to 40 minutes to go see it is less than ideal. Because you with rental property, you'd like to be able to go check on the property from time to time just to make sure everything's in good order and good standing. So moving out of town that's one box in the con, is that this will not be a local property that you're managing. So that's definitely in the con column. Also, for my situation, I was moving to a different state. I was moving to Tennessee, and I'll be honest, the house just wouldn't sell. I had it redone. Like, we repainted all the walls, we changed the colors to make them more neutral. We redid all the hardwoods. This house felt new on the inside, and we couldn't sell it for the right price. And I was like, man, you couldn't build this house for what we're trying to sell it for. So this is just a disconnection from value versus where the market is right now. So I was left with, and there was no gain, by the way, because I prepaid all my negative equity from the Great Recession and the big downturn in real estate. So for me, I rented it because I could get rent to capture paying the mortgage that was still on it, plus make sure I'm not selling at a value that was disconnected from the reality of what it would cost.
So you were a landlord not because you wanted to be necessarily, but because the price is
because if I had a gain, like I guarantee, I would have to think that John is probably facing a situation, just because we came through this post inflationary period. He's probably sitting on a rather large gain, and that actually would work in the benefit of selling the property, because the government does let you have that up, if for a married couple, up to $500,000 of tax-free gain. That's worth a ton. But if you were in a situation like I was, where you didn't have any gain, you were going to take a bath on selling this house at a huge loss, it seemed more reasonable for me to find a really good family, give them a really good deal, but it was a good deal for me. They would take care of the house. Now, even with that said, here's the problem with rental property. Great family rented our house. But remember, I had repainted all the walls. I had redone all the hardwoods. They had pets. They had things that happened. The hardwoods had to be completely redone after they left again. So that was $6,000 to after they moved out that we had to do. So the way I would look at this is, I was really leaning heavily on the tax-free gain. And then you take that into consideration, then ask yourself, do you want to go through the hassle of being a real estate landlord, and balance it? Because I've done it. It is a lot of work, and I even had really good tenants. I mean, because by the way, when the HOA reaches out and says, hey, your tenant has a boat in the driveway, you have to be the jerk that says, hey, you can't have a boat sitting in the driveway.
Did your tenant have a boat in the driveway?
They had a boat in the driveway for a little bit. And, because the HOA reaches out to me, on these things. Yeah. A wind blew a shutter off. you know who they reach out to? Me. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, and I'm out of state, I have to find somebody to repair it. You know, just be aware of what you're getting into with the hassle factor.
Then the other thing I'd throw on there is, do you need the money from selling the house? So obviously, if you're moving somewhere else and you have to buy a new home and you have to come up with a down payment and you need the some people might not be in a position where they can leave all the equity they have in their current house tied up in their current house. So even if renting sounds great and that's something you're interested in, something you want to do, you may very well be in the scenario where, man, I really need the proceeds from selling that house to be able to launch in this new city, in this other state, in this other area that I'm going to move to. So make sure that you are also making wise financial decisions based on where you are in your financial order of operations. Because what you don't want to do is try to keep the rental property because you like the tenants of that and you want to think about being a landlord. And then all of a sudden you get yourself into a pickle where now you have 2 mortgages that you're responsible for. You're stretched too thin and you've not been following the financial order of operations. You don't have a fully built emergency fund. You haven't put enough down in your house. You didn't keep your housing costs down low, because that type of scenario can put you in a pretty precarious situation really, really fast.